Flair reports. Texas hospitality has been legendary for so many years that it came as something of a shock late last month that Ambassador Adlai Stevenson was greeted in Dallas by a group of pickets with booing, hissing, and in the case of one woman, even spitting. Minutes ago, President Kennedy arrived in Texas, and tomorrow he will fly to Dallas. Is he likely to meet with a similar reception? This is Ted Koppel for Flair Reports. I'll be back with Dallas City Manager in a moment.
It helped me, dear. Maybe that's what you need.
Thanks a lot. Oh, one more thing before you hang up.
Mm-hmm.
I need a deodorant that really works without,
burning or rash?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for normal skin, those irritations are nature's warning that perhaps your deodorant is getting in nature's way.
Oh?
Maybe you need a deodorant that works with nature. Try Mum. It's different. Mum Cream deodorant doesn't have to clog pores, doesn't need irritating chemicals. Mum works with nature.
And stops odor all day. Thanks.
The reaction of Dallas officials to the Stevenson incident 4 weeks ago was one of almost unanimous embarrassment. As Dallas City Manager Elgin Krull tells us,
when Ambassador Stevenson was here, what happened was the result of the actions of a very few people, and in no way should be judged as characteristic of the people of this city.
And realistically speaking, there is no reason why it should be. But the reputation of a decent majority can be easily jeopardized by a few. So Dallas has taken steps to see that it doesn't happen again. A city ordinance has just been passed to that effect. But a city ordinance against spitting on public officials?
Well, actually, this spitting business was pretty largely exaggerated down here. This is a general law controlling the action of people who might be picketing a meeting or who might attempt to disrupt a meeting.
Well, does it prevent picketing and demonstrations altogether?
What this ordinance does is not to interfere in any way with the right of people to picket, but it requires them to picket peacefully. And it also will provide that if people lease an auditorium in order to hear a speaker, that they'll be able to have their speaker present what he has to say without interference.
Ironically, the first major public figure to put that new city ordinance to a test will be the President of the United States. I asked Mr. Krull whether he and his colleagues expected any trouble.
When the President arrives here tomorrow, we expect no difficulty of any kind. We don't know whether there will be any picketing, but if there is, we feel certain it will be courteous and quiet.
For the next few days, the eyes of Texas will be on the President and the First Lady. But the eyes of the nation are on Texas right now.
President Kennedy lectured detractors of the U.S. space program today, explaining that much useful technical and medical information already gained is serving to improve and prolong life on Earth. Speaking at the dedication of the Aerospace Medical Health Center near San Antonio this afternoon, the President told his audience that the conquest of space must and will go ahead. Our effort in space, he said, is not a competitor for the national resources needed to improve our living standards. It is instead a working partner and co-producer of those resources. Space research so far, said the President, defending his space program, has brought us new information on methods to control air pollution. It has helped with design of new techniques in curing eye, heart, and lung diseases, and offers hope of solving many other earthly problems. Mr. Kennedy's words, appropriate in Texas where billions are being spent on space, were directed at those who call the race to the moon a foolish waste of money. Tonight, the President is in Houston, appearing at a nonpartisan testimonial dinner to honor Democratic Congressman Albert Thomas, who has boasted more than once that his efforts led to Houston's becoming the site of the Manned Spacecraft Center. This is Sid Davis with the Presidential Party in Houston. President Kennedy is speaking tonight at a big bipartisan dinner here in Houston, home of the nation's sprawling Manned Spacecraft Center and the U.S. astronauts. But neither the President nor the astronauts are tonight's guests of honor. The man being testimonialized is Democratic Congressman Albert Thomas, who takes credit for bringing the multi-billion-dollar space installation to Houston. Houston businessmen, Republicans, and Democrats are paying him homage. Earlier today, at nearby San Antonio, the President defended his administration's decision to get America to the moon first. Speaking at the dedication of an Aerospace Medical Health Center, the President said that despite the cost and the difficulties, the conquest of space must and will go forward. Mr. Kennedy will make 5 more speeches during his 2.5 days in Texas. They will not all deal with space, for while this trip is described as non-political, a president facing re-election within a year can't help from talking about his own record. Mrs. Kennedy is with the President on this, her first trip to Texas. Appearing with the president but flying separately as is customary is the Vice President, Lyndon Johnson. The political experts are watching receptions for the two men, Kennedy and Johnson, with an eye to next year's election. In 1960, the president carried the state by 46,000 votes. While most Texans are pleased with the space business, they may not be so happy about other Kennedy programs, and Mr. Kennedy's trip here is kind of a political rocket launching to test the atmosphere in advance of next year's campaigning. Texas, with its 25 electoral votes, is a toss-up, they say, if Goldwater is the Republican nominee. The Democratic Party here is currently being racked by an internal conflict between conservatives and liberals. This won't help the president's re-election chances unless the party is unified, and this will be among some of the private conversations in the president's hotel room. This is Sid Davis with the Presidential Party in Houston.